Good evening. I'm Marcia Weber, and I'd like to welcome you to the 16th annual Maida and John Spiegler Holocaust Remembrance Lecture. Tonight, we're happy to be joined by Maida and John Spiegler's daughter, Judy, and her husband, Rabbi Lee Paskind. And I also welcome our speaker, Felice Zimmern Stokes. Through this lecture series, we take on the important mission of reminding those who are older and telling those who are younger of the events of the Holocaust. We have been honored to have speakers who've been willing to share their own very painful experiences, unimaginable to most of us, in the hope that we will do all we can to prevent the terror of that period from occurring ever again. But we find ourselves in a difficult time now, with Holocaust deniers trying to erase history and with anti-Semitism on the rise. This in the United States, which for so many people was a refuge from hate during and after World War II. The Anti-Defamation League, an organization founded to fight anti-Semitism and all forms of hate, compiles data on the number of reported anti-Semitic incidents in the US, including assaults, vandalism, and harassment. The most recent data is from 2022, last year, when there was a 36% increase in the incidence of anti-Semitic violence, the highest number on record since ADL began tracking anti-Semitic incidents in 1979. This 36% increase is on top of a 34% increase the year before. Those of us who have listened to the words of Holocaust survivors over the years are chilled by the reminder that the hatred they faced has not disappeared. But research shows that Holocaust education is critical to combating anti-Semitism, so by being here tonight, we are standing up to hate. We can do more by educating our friends and by reporting hateful language in person and online. It is up to us all to take action against anti-Semitism and other hatreds and make our country a safer and better place for all. Now we can hear Felice Zimmern Stokes' story as she is interviewed by Maureen Mines.
Good evening, Felice.
Good evening.
Welcome to Corning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It's truly an honor to have the opportunity to talk with you. So let's begin at the beginning. Tell us about where you were born.
I was born in Waldern, Germany in October 39. And I believe Waldern is near Mannheim because that's where my sister was born. But I was born in the house where we lived.
So that's in October of 1939. That's shortly after the German invasion of Poland. Now, from your writings, I understand that you didn't learn about your history till years and years later. But can you tell us about how your family came to be separated?
Well, in October 22nd, 1940, we were deported, not only us, because there was only 5 Jewish families in this very small town, but we were deported with a group of 15,000 Jews all around us, and we were taken to Camp de Gors, which is located in the Pyrenees between France and Spain.
And so you're just barely a year old at this point.
Right.
Can you describe what you came to know about life at Camp de Gors? So what was it like there?
Well, the children were separated, the women were separated, and the men were separated. None of us were together. And I understand it was very muddy, a terrible situation there. But you know, the family and the people from the different towns, the different areas, they just lived life as it was. My mother used to deliver milk to different people, and that's what I understood from the letters that I'll talk about later. But it was life if you can say as usual, but this is what was going on now.
So you're all separated,
Right,
and trying to maintain a normal life.
right,
Your mom is trying to keep track of you and your
Right.
sister.
yes.
So what is happening to you at that point?
I really don't know. I mean, we were so small, and I found out later that there were nurses who were taking care of the babies. I mean, I wasn't, I don't know whether I was the youngest, but at some point, about 6 or 7 months later, we were taken, the children were taken by a group, an agency which was called the Œuvre de Secours aux Enfants, or for short is OSE, O-S-E, which is the œuvre, it's the works of to help the children. This is basically what is translated, but they took care of a lot of children. They knew exactly where they were taking them, and we were taken to a La Pouponnière, which is like a nursery in Limoges, and I lived there for about 1.5 years, and my sister couldn't live there until after she was 5. She had to leave. So, and then it became very dangerous. So I was taken to a non-Jewish family, Châteauroux, which is actually, it was La Caillaudière, that's a small town. And I became their child for about 3.5 years. And I was a happy child. I was walking around. I went to church. I didn't know I was Jewish. As a matter of fact, I was called Felice because you know, it was very dangerous at that point, and they only had one son who was maybe 21 at the time, and he used to travel. He was a salesman, and he used to come on the weekend, and Madame Patou, she was like a real mama. I mean, she was a mama. She washed the clothes, she made the food, and she knew how dangerous it was, so she hid all her jewelry underneath the earth, and whenever she went to sleep, she didn't wear a nightgown or anything. She just used this, slept in a slip, just in case someone, you know, was going to be very dangerous and we had to leave. But I didn't know any of this. You know, I was a happy little girl.
So before the age of 3, you'd been moved around a lot,
Yeah.
and finally you end up with this family, the Patou family.
Right.
And you're there for how long?
About 3.5 years, yeah, till
Yeah.
45.
And in 1945, there was a reunion of sorts, right?
Right, with my sister. I didn't know I had a sister, so this little girl comes along on the pathway, and she's holding a pear, and she comes towards me, and I'm thinking, oh, she looks very much like me, but I'm thinking, but she can't take my doll. I just had one doll. I used to call her my yaya, and I was so scared of her, of my sister, because she's going to take my doll away. But we were together for a few months at that point. And, oh, there I am.
There you are with the doll.
With the doll. And he made that little carriage.
Monsieur Patou did.
Monsieur Patou, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we used to go, this was such a small little town, little area. So then when the son came home, his name was Roger, he put me on his bicycle, and we used to go to the next town, which was called Vendeuvre. Now, all of a sudden, there's this little girl running around, and they knew, you know, this was a small town, so people knew each other, but they didn't say anything. Nobody told anyone, if they were Germans or anyone coming along, they didn't say who I was. So they were wonderful people in this little town, in this next town.
Right, so you were hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and I used to play with I think there's a picture. Oh, this is like in 1947 with my sister and I, when we went back to visit the Patous. My sister is the shorter one, Beat. She always was shorter. She still is shorter than me, even though I'm 2 years younger. But we looked almost like jumelles, like twins, because we look very much alike. Yeah. But there is a picture of the children next. We used to play with the children next door to us all the time. Eventually, I guess it'll be shown. Yeah.
Yeah. So soon after you discovered that you have a sister.
Oh, this. Sorry,
Yeah.
this is when we were taken to 2 different orphanages, and this is one of them. And I'm the one the monitrice, the counselor, she's holding. I'm by her in the left, by her left arm. That's me up there.
Okay. Yeah, I see. So soon after you discovered that you have a sister, you're both taken from the Patou family in 1945, first to an orphanage called Draveil,
Right.
and that's for 2 years. What do you remember about that time?
Well, that's the problem. It was so upsetting to leave this wonderful family that I don't remember the first 2 years when we were in the orphanage. And then after that, we were taken to Taverny, and this is the group of Taverny, and I'm like in the middle. There's a little boy who's standing with a black, he looks like he's wearing a black, what do you call it?
Oh, coveralls?
Coveralls. I'm right underneath him. I'm sitting there.
Okay.
That's me. And my sister looks angry. Where is she? Well, I can't find her. It's all right. But this was a wonderful home. Until that point, I didn't know that I was Jewish. And then this was an Orthodox Jewish home. And I learned Hebrew, and I learned how to daven, to pray. And this was a wonderful time for me. Oh, wonderful, as wonderful can be. But the reason why we were in the orphanage is because my parents, after they were in Camp de Gours, they were taken to another camp, Rift South, and then another one, Drancy, and then eventually to Auschwitz, when with Convoy 40, November 4th, 1942. And that's why we were taken to the orphanages, because I didn't have parents anymore. Not only were my parents taken there, but my uncles, the brothers of my father, and quite a few other family members were taken then to Auschwitz.
So here at Taverny, it was a more positive atmosphere than the previous place.
Yeah, it was a positive, very positive.
And you said there were counselors there, wonderful counselors?
Yes, they were wonderful. My counselor her name was Hélène Ekezer. She's by the right side, hiding behind a little boy who's holding like a stick, but she's right behind him. And she was amazing because she was only 10 years older than I was. And there I was 8, so she was like 18. And she told us all about what went on in Auschwitz, where she was there. And she told us about an unbelievable story where they were walking in the snow, and it was very hard to walk, and this little girl couldn't walk anymore. So they asked the men in the truck, who were Germans, if she could ride with them, and they said, sure, why not? So they take her on the truck, and then they shoot her right there. And we said, oh, that's really a wonderful story. Don't you have any other stories to tell us? I mean, we were so involved in her stories and her life. And all of us were in the same boat, so it was quite interesting for us, even though we couldn't comprehend what she had gone through. But there was such love in that orphanage, so that was a wonderful time for us.
So you were there until 1951, correct?
Until 51, right.
And so you're just 11 years old.
I was
or thereabouts.
Earlier. I was there till I was 10 and a half. That's
Okay.
when we left.
Okay.
And the reason why we left is because we had an aunt and uncle who had come to America, and he was the other brother of my father. There were 4 of them, and they wanted us to live with them. And so we said, we're going to go to America. So we said, we really weren't that thrilled about it. My sister very much didn't want to go. And so we traveled on this boat, SS Washington, and we called it the SS Washington. And we never had cereal or milk, and like Colgate. We had never heard about Colgate toothpaste. So on the boat, we all learned about that. But then it was a terrible crossing. You know, it was going like this. So we got very seasick. But then we come to America, and that was the worst part, because when that's me. So we get off, and we found out that we weren't going to live with our aunt and uncle because there was a the aunt had a brother, she had a mother, and of course they had a son, and there was no room for us. But they didn't tell us that when we left France, because they were afraid that if we found out, we wouldn't want to go. So they didn't tell us. And my sister started crying when we got off the boat, and I saw her cry, so I started crying. And that was one of the worst times, when we had such love in Taverny, and then we come here. We didn't speak English. They didn't speak French, the social workers that met us. So that was a very tough time for us. So we went to live in another home, which was like a home for children who had problems, a Jewish home. And we stayed there for about a year. And then I went to a camp. And my sister refused to go to the camp. I mean, she was a teenager, so she absolutely didn't want to have anything with anything. So it was very hard for her. And for me, since I was, 10 and a half, 11, 12, I was going along. Yeah, sure, that'll be all right. Yeah. And that's when we came to America.
So I understand that to protect you from further trauma.
This is in Newark. That's where we lived, and that's me.
So to protect you from further trauma, you and your sister weren't allowed to see that aunt and uncle.
Right. They told us we came in early February '51, and they said you couldn't come and see them till April at least. You couldn't have anything to do with them because of what went on. And eventually we did go once for Pesach, and I came into her house. I couldn't believe it. Everything they had there was from Germany. They had brought everything over. All the furniture. They had a big armoire, and the everything on their where they slept. Everything was from Germany. Everything. So they brought everything here.
Everything with them, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a painfully ironic situation that there was a family that wanted to adopt you. Your
Right.
aunt and uncle are saying,
Right.
no, we want them, and then that
Right.
doesn't work out.
There was a wonderful family who wanted. Right. They came to visit us in Taverny, and then we went to Paris with them. We went to the Tour Eiffel, and they were wonderful. But the uncle refused. Actually, I think it was the aunt. She was the real.
She wanted it, but then that didn't work out. So, but then you eventually ended up with a loving foster family, the Gellers.
The second one, right.
Right. And you stayed with them through high school.
Right.
Now, at what point did your aunt and uncle share with you the letters that you received, or that they received, rather?
Well,
from
my sister had one of her children was a girl, Gail. She went to college in the University of Buffalo, so she went to visit them, and she said, the aunt told my niece that they have letters from my parents who wrote it from Gurs, begging them to get them out of Gurs and get them to America. And I have some of the letters here I'd like to read. This is October 30th, 1940. My uncle Hugo described the deportation. You will be astonished, but 8 days ago we had to leave Mannheim with 1 hour's notice with 2 pieces of luggage. It was dreadful. 3 nights of rail journey without food. All the Jews of Baden-Pfalz were expelled. Others will follow, no doubt. France was not prepared for this mass of people, and therefore there is lack of everything. You cannot imagine what it is. The French are very polite and make every effort to lighten the people's fate, but because of the war, they themselves are limited in everything. We are in wooden barracks without heating, and the barracks are very primitive. Men and women are separate. David, that's my father, and family and Leopold are also in my block. Today, I see Hermine, I think it was his wife, for the first time in 8 days for 2 minutes. I could not yet speak with Lydia, that's my mother, and the children, that's my sister and I. My father also described, this is November 4th, 1940, the deportation several days later. About 2 weeks ago, all of us left for a camp in the south of France. This was a great surprise, and we could only take with us the most essential things. We had to leave everything home. Sad but true. Dear Lydia, and the dear children are here also. The French make great efforts to feed us, but nevertheless, we have to miss the certain things. We could not have dreamt of such a thing all our lives, that we have to leave Germany in such a way with nothing. And, it goes on and on, different letters. And then at one point, February 8, 1941, from my father, dear Felice remained in Toulouse since the doctor of the Swiss Aid organization did not want to take it upon himself to let her go to Limoges, where Beate was sent, since she was so miserable. On January 14th, we heard from Limoges that Beate weighs only 11 kilos, which in view of her age is much too little, and she had lost about 10 kilos while she was here. And then from my mother, many thanks for the packages you advised us of, but they have not yet arrived. The dear children have been in Limoges for 3 months. They are well and well taken care of, but missing them is terrible. They write positively, but we are not with them. I would be the happiest of women if we had the dear children with us again. And it goes on.
Yeah. So, the irony of it strikes me of your parents having to leave with only 2 suitcases. When did your aunt and uncle leave Germany? Because they had all that stuff.
Yeah, 1939.
Wow, so they got out just in time be able to take their things.
Yeah.
So you stayed with Gellers through high school, and that was a happy time. At what point did you decide to reach out and get back in touch with the Patou family?
I'm not sure. I think it was in the early 60s, but I said I really wanted to know if they're still around. Oh, that's my mother. That's the only picture I have of my mother. Yeah. And so I wrote to the mayor asking if they had an address for the Patous. So he did send me an address, and I wrote to her, and she writes, Felice, ma chère Felice, I found you at last. She opened up the windows, and she starts crying out loud. She was an amazing lady, and so I decided to go and visit them. And so I forget when I went. I think it was in the 60s first. That was before I was married. And I get off the train, and I recognize her right away. Oh, these are the children when I went back to visit, and they were right next door. They lived right next door to us, to the Patous. And you see Madame Patou, I have my left arm around, in her arm. And that young man on the right, there was another picture of him when he was a little boy. They remembered me right away.
So, and that says July 1965.
Oh, 65, okay.
Yeah.
So, So they brought me to, Roger, that was her son, brought me to Vendeuve, which was the town next to where I lived. And there was a row of people around, and they all came over and they gave me a kiss, and she wouldn't let me stay anywhere. I had to stay with Madame Patou, and she got new linen for me, and she gave me a lot of these pictures from her. If I hadn't gone back, I wouldn't have gotten it. And she was so sweet. She had no teeth, but she was so lovable. It was really wonderful to see her again. Yeah.
So in 1970, you applied to Yad Vashem.
Yad Vashem.
Which is the World Holocaust Remembrance Center in Israel, to recognize the Patou family.
Right, as a righteous just, as Chasidei Umot HaOlam, um, that's, I forget how you say it in
Is it
English.
Righteous Gentiles?
Righteous Gentiles, right.
Yeah.
So in 1970, and my boss, who was very much involved with the Yad Vashem, we kept waiting and waiting for the news that they would recognize them. And finally they said, you have two witnesses. You have the two girls, and that's what they needed. And it took them till 1974 to recognize. So a cousin went to Paris, and she got the medal. It was really very exciting. And of course now she's listed in Yad Vashem Museum, and she's also here in Washington. And I had, you know, and then also in Paris, there's an area where all the list of the names are listed, and then on the other side of a wall, they're listed Monsieur and Madame Patou, who really were instrumental in saving our lives. Yeah.
Absolutely. Are you still in touch with any members of the Patou family?
Unfortunately, she died in, I think, 76, and I tried to contact her son, and the letter came back, and it said décédé, meaning he had died. Yeah, they had died. No, yeah.
Now, you also visited Waldurin.
Waldurin.
Am I saying that right?
Yes, I did.
Yes, where you were born, and what was that like?
Well, it was amazing. I don't speak German, and I go to this shop, and I said, my name is Felice Zimmern, because I wasn't married then, and I said I would like to rent a bicycle and to go around the town because I was born here. So he says to me, what is your name? Actually, he said, well, tell me your name again. So I told him my name. He said, go down to this street and knock on these people's door, and I think they'll have a bicycle for you. So I knocked on the door. I showed them my passport, and she almost dropped dead because her daughter played with my sister when my sister was 3 and her daughter was 3. So she very much remembered us, and she started calling everybody in the town, and they all came, and she said, you can't sleep in the inn, you have to sleep with us. And then I went to the cemetery, and I found one of my grandmother's stone was there, and the woman who was she was the head of the school there. She said, I used to be Jewish, but I decided not to be Jewish anymore, but I'm going to take care of you when we walk around. I said, okay. So she showed me around, and I went back to where I was born, the house, and there were some people living there without paying, And then they asked me whether I would ever come back, and I said, no, I don't think so. And then I had a friend whose sister-in-law lived in the same town. I couldn't believe it, and she said she's going to check to find out whether there was any information. So she said she found a little bit, but not too much. There was only 5 Jewish families in that town. 5 Jewish families.
So in Waldurin, the townspeople gathered and regaled you with a big lunch. Yeah. And you recall that they said they were sorry for what had happened to your family, and that your parents were very good people.
Very good people, and that we had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
That's their famous line.
How did that make you feel at the time?
Well, at that point, I wasn't too connected with myself, so I said, oh, okay, right. But I really didn't react, maybe as I should have, I don't know. I said, okay, I understand.
And how do you feel now?
Well, I feel that they probably could have done something else, something more. It was really a terrible time, and we were so young. I mean, I was 1 and my sister was 3, and my parents were, I think they were about 46 and 48 when they died. And all
just a young family.
Oh yeah, it was really bad, very bad.
Is there anything you would have liked to say to them that you didn't get a chance to say?
I don't know. The only thing could have think of, how could you? Why couldn't you do anything? Wasn't there anything? But, who knows what was going on then?
Right.
Yeah. It was a very small town. I understand now it's a beautiful town. There's a special church where you can go in and get, you can ask for a miracle, and He'll provide you with a miracle there. I understand it's a lovely town.
Yeah.
Now I wrote to the mayor because I said I understand that I forget what it's, Stoppel, right, where you put stone at the bottom of the house where you were born here and who lived here. So I wrote to him and asked him about it, and he said, well, now we don't do that anymore. We put all the information at Camp de Gorse. And if you'd like, you can come and visit us. So I haven't answered him yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you can bring your family. What family? I mean, unfortunately, I married in 1980, and unfortunately, my husband died in 2005. He had asthma, but he was a wonderful man. And I have, of course, my sister, and she has three children, four grandchildren. I have 2 stepchildren, but I'm not close with them. And the people that I'm closest to are the people in my shul. I live in Teaneck, and I have 2 wonderful people right here, Judy and Lee. And they've been giving me a lot of support. And it's very hard. And I've gone to many conferences. And then I found out in 1990 about hidden children, and there was a big conference in New York. I thought there was going to be maybe 500 people. There were over 1,500 who all were hidden children. And I still belong to a group which it's really the infants of the Holocaust. They were born 42, 43. It's amazing how we've survived. And with tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I never knew my parents, and the Patous were really the first people that I got to know, and the Gellers were very close with me.
Yeah.
So that was very special.
So you rebuilt this part of your past, and then you also decided to seek answers to the fate of your parents.
Sorry?
You decided to find out what happened to your parents, right?
Yeah.
So how did you find out what happened to them?
How did I find out? Oh, I know. What happened is that when I went, there was a big conference in Washington, and there was Serge Klausfeld and his wife, her name is Beate Klausfeld, and she isn't Jewish, but she was very much involved in finding out and all the Nazis, and she was able to bring them to justice. And so I found out they had a book. They put it out first in French and then in English, and he put every single name that all the Jews that had gone through France and they were deported, and when they were deported, and the convoy, everything. And when I went back to Paris to visit my dear friend Monitrice, my counselor, and she says, you have to go back to France, and then you have to look through this book. I forget, I have it written here.
Oh, it's Memorial to the Jews Deported from France, 1942 to 1944.
And this is where I found the names of my parents. I was sitting in my office, and I found it. It was an amazing, when they were deported, the date, where they were deported. And then at the UN, there was a list of all the Jews that went through, put out by Yad Vashem. And there I found about 12 names, last names with Zimmern, and I am related to them in this list. And I still have it in my iPhone. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing. Yes, that's how I found out that they were actually, because before I didn't know when, and so I used that date when they were deported as for my yard site. When I say, every year we say when it's that date when they were born, right? Is it when they, huh? Oh, when they died. Sorry, and that's when I use it as a yard site for my parents, and I have their names in the shul. I have their names on the wall of the Washington Museum. they're two different places, so they're listed somewhere,
You
somehow.
were able to
Yeah.
honor them that way.
Yeah.
At one point, you went to Buffalo and you asked your aunt how they could have not helped
Right.
your parents.
All these letters were translated by a very good friend of mine who unfortunately died since then, but she worked for Dr. Nachum Goldman, who was the president of the World Zionist Organization, and she was amazing. She knew so many languages. So she translated everything for me. So then I went back to Buffalo, and I said to my aunt, because I think my uncle had died by then, and I said, how could you not have helped them? Why? So then she was sitting with her sister-in-law. So the sister-in-law says, well, you know, at that time, the Jews didn't have any power. They couldn't do anything. So there was nothing else we could do. This is her answer for the aunt.
And what was your response then?
I said, I'm amazed that nothing was done. Amazed. So I was glad that I was. And then when my uncle died, my sister calls me up and she says, we have to go to Buffalo and go to his funeral. I said, you go to Buffalo. I'm not going to his funeral. And I refused to go. So so she went. And then when my aunt died, the same thing. I didn't go. I really didn't. I had no love or anything for him. I mean, that they could not, and all these letters that he was pleading, and my parents said, please, you know us, we're good for the money. Just lend us the money, get us a visa. They knew exactly. And they said, you go from here, and you have to go there, and you have to go. They knew exactly. These people were in Gauze, and nothing was done. And they were taken.
Yeah. Felice, you withstood childhood trauma and devastating loss, and had the courage to continue to dig into your past, rebuild the life history that was taken from you. It must be painful to relive these memories.
Yeah, it's very hard, but the good thing that I decided to do is go back and go into therapy and really worked on myself and really worked on what went on. And I kept saying, if I only, I don't even have anything to show that. If I had the numbers, people could understand that I was also in pain. Like this woman who was, I went to a conference and this older woman was in front of me and she says, well, you're so young, how could you, what did you suffer? You didn't suffer any. I said, really? Are you saying that to me? So, they didn't understand. People, even how young we are, we also suffered. But it was through therapy that helped me, So I do have the strength. I do have the strength to go on, to work on it. And that's what did it, my therapy.
So, yeah, what gives you the strength to continue telling your story aside from therapy?
I feel that we are the youngest. I mean, we are the last group. Of course, they are second generation, third generation. But I feel that we have to talk as much as we can so people know that it wasn't a dream, that it did happen, and that we are the proof that we went through it.
And you have said that this can happen again.
Yeah.
What can we do to safeguard our neighbors?
I don't know. The Patus were very strong in taking me in, and then taking my sister. And then afterwards, I understand that she took in another little girl who wasn't Jewish, and she lived with her for 5-10 years. She was a remarkable lady. Yeah.
So at this point, we thought we'd invite questions from the audience.
Okay.
Yes, I think Ms. Caprarella is getting the mics now. Here come the minions.
If you have a question, please raise your hand or gesture at one of the kids. I see a question right there, so why don't you?
Hey. I picked up my granddaughter today from school. She goes here. She and I have talked for years. She's 16 now. I've done a lot of research on this time period. I have some German roots, some of them good, some of them not, but I wanted to know what was going on with my family. And she and I have spoken about the loss. I guess my question to you I just wanted to let you know that she and I had talked. She could not be here tonight. She wanted to make sure her grandfather showed up here with my wife. And she wants me to go back and give her a report. First of all, your bravery on it, because this might be difficult and you're strong. But I said, Olivia, as I was just dropping her off, I go, imagine you being Jewish and Germans driving up to this house you're dropping off right now. And they come and they take you away, your parents away, and you see neighbors maybe slide their curtains shut because they can't do anything. They either don't want to do anything, they're scared to do something, because I said there were people who said, when I help other Jews, then I'm considered helper, and then I may go away and never come back. So she's trying to understand how people could even think that way, to not be helpful. And so she's coming of age to learn of all that. I guess my question to you was, at what age, you had a lot to say, so I may have missed it. At what age did you have that awareness and being upset about things that may have happened different, so that you did have some family? Because when I told Olivia, I go, imagine our extended family, 50, 60, 70 people, and imagine losing 40 of them. You never knew them. You never have a chance to have those reunions where you have all that kind of family. You've lost so much of all that. At what age was it that you became aware that you were quite upset and you wanted to do that research to find out what was really going on?
When I started high school here, one of the things that they said to me, well, what language do you speak at home? I said, oh no, English. I had completely... I've forgotten. I repressed it, is a better word. I think it was probably 18, 19, when I moved from New Jersey and I went on to live in a girls' club in New York, and I didn't meet anyone that had gone through, or there was one person who had gone through, but we didn't talk about it. But it was much later, when I was about, maybe even later, 20, 21. We couldn't deal with it. I didn't talk about it. I certainly didn't talk about it with my foster parents. They didn't ask too many questions, and I didn't really tell them anything. I really want, you're a teenager, you want to belong, you want to fit in. So it didn't come to me until after my 20s. Oh, poor man, wait, you girls, are you hiding him? That's when it started. And I ran into someone that she remembered me, and I said, did I ever talk about it? She says, a little bit, but not much. She said, not much. So I didn't really talk about it. And then I went on to Stern College, of all places. Stern College is the women's division of Yeshiva University, because I started out, I thought I was not Jewish. Then I became very religious. And then my foster parents were conservative, so they were not religious. And then, I went back and forth, and I was able to get a grant to Stern College. I said, okay, I'll go there. And that's also, I started to think about it, But it was not till much later, because I really forgot all about it. Once we came to Newark, we lived there, and then we moved on. We went separately. My sister went one way, and I went the other way. I didn't talk about it, and I certainly didn't talk about it to my sister.
Wow.
No.
Wow. Oops. Here's another question here.
Hi, I want to thank you for coming and talking about this. It must be very, very hard.
It is.
And yet it's so important. So I want to really thank you.
Welcome.
And I did have a question. It's more of a historical question. So I also have studied this myself. And I'm friendly, actually very friendly with another hidden child.
Oh.
Do you know Flora Hogman?
I've heard of her, sure.
Yeah, we're neighbors in the same building in the city, and we're very close.
Isn't she a psychiatrist, a therapist?
She is, yeah. But my question was more from a historical point of view. I never knew that Jewish people were deported from Germany to France. I only have read about Jewish people who were French being deported to Germany. So, I don't know if anyone can shed any light on this. I never heard. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's there's a book called The Map of the Holocaust by Martin Gilbert. He was English, Sir Martin Gilbert, and that's how I found out a lot of. But we were deported on that date, October 20th, 1940, and there was 15,000 of us who went to the Camp de Gauche. And like my uncle wrote in the letter, it was really terrible, but it wasn't a killing camp, because that was earlier, so that was not. But a lot of people died in that camp also. But then eventually they were all sent to Auschwitz. I don't know what happened to them after that. But
I think we have another question up here.
Okay. Yes, Madam Felice, I want to commend you for getting therapy. And I will explain that. My father was a Holocaust survivor, and he came back to America, and living under him was terrible. I hated my father because he had an explosive temper. He just went off the handle, and the smallest inkling, he'd just blow up. And like I said, I hated him, and it was a few years ago that I finally realized he suffered PTSD. And I never realized that all this time. So now I feel guilty because I didn't understand that he had a problem. So I commend you for at least getting therapy and being treated.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I felt it was very important for me.
First of all, thank you very much for coming and telling your story. I just want to let you know that many, many people out here in the world do believe in the Holocaust. I remember as a teenager, my grandfather was in World War II. He was in the Army liberating concentration camps, and he told us many, many stories. I mean, he passed away about 20 years ago, but anyway, when he was in Germany, he had a lot of extramarital escapades over there, and we have some family over in Germany we've been trying to locate, and we've been using, yeah, we've been trying to use the genealogy databases to search that stuff and see if we can find our relatives over in Germany. I am curious if you have done anything like that to find any of maybe other relatives in your life. What's that?
No, I think he means
I said escapades.
Oh,
Oh,
No.
yes, yeah, I did.
Ancestry.com and that kind of
I
thing.
did. My great niece went to Exeter, and one of her teachers was very much involved or interested in the Holocaust. So when he found out that she had a grandmother, actually a great aunt and grandmother who went through, so he did a lot of those searches for me, and he sent me. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Chloe, I think there's another question over here.
In the middle there.
Yeah.
Right here. Right there. There.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about meeting your husband in that chapter of your life.
Oh, it's very interesting because he was my foster parents were Toby and Murray Geller. So Toby was wait a minute, let's try it the other way. There was Ethel and Morris, and Ethel's mother and Sherman, who was my husband's father, were brother and sister. So once we always used to go up to Ethel and Morris's house, and I found out that my foster mother was also related. I don't know how, but they were, so it was Erev Christmas. We always used to go there. And they introduced me to him. And and then later on, he finally asked me for my phone number, and one thing led to another. So that's how I met him. And he was divorced, and he had 2 children, Claudia and Brian Stokes. And so that's how we met. And we were married in 1980. He was a chemical engineer, very bright, very good sense of humor. And we got along very well right away. So I knew. And this was when I was 40, so I had been, as I said, I'd been around, but nothing major. Nothing major.
No escapades.
No escapades. But I knew right away that he was a very special person. So we had 25 years, which was wonderful. But then he died of an asthma attack. Yeah, he had a terrible asthma problem. But that was a wonderful time. That's who I miss also very much. Yeah.
So, sorry. I wanted to start by saying thank you for coming out tonight. Recently this year, we had another hidden child come to our school via Zoom and talk to our students. And I had told them this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I'm so thankful to have you here so that my students can have a twice-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Each time we have the other hidden child come to our school, I try to ask her to leave off with, if you had to give one message for students and educators and all people to leave with, what is the one message you would want to go beyond this room and for others to hear about what you went through and what this event could inspire other people to do in the future when we have to face a challenge such as standing up and doing what we believe in rather than doing what's easiest? So what is the biggest message you would want people to walk away from tonight?
It's hard, but the one thing I think is to have hope, and not to lose hope that even though you've gone through rough times, maybe tomorrow, maybe another day it'll be better. And I think that's, and to have strength. I have this, I bought this thing that says Chazak, strength, from the, who is it from? The Torah Fund Committee from the JTS, so it's, I follow, I like, but to have hope and to believe, if you can, but a lot, when I first came to Newark, I met this girl, Sabina, and she says, I'm not going to be Jewish anymore. Look what happens when you're Jewish. So I said, okay, but I don't believe that way. I really feel that I like being Jewish, and going to Stern College really helped me have the Yiddishkeit. It was a very strong place, so I'm glad I went there. Yeah.
Thank you. You've given a good example of what doing nothing looked like in terms of your aunt and uncle. What today would doing something look like?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry, I really
Yeah.
can't.
I think that's a challenge because,
Yeah.
if things become worse, what will doing something look like?
Yeah. I don't know.
Barakatoy Aranoi.
What?
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
I had the privilege of caring for a man who was a camp liberator, and he had never told his family any of the stories till he was dying, and they were amazed at the stories. And one thing he said was that the mayor of the community where they liberated the camp, they went to the camp, invaded the camp, and they talked to people, and they said, how could you not know what was going on, the smells, all that. And they just said, they just didn't want to get involved,
Right.
and he was just amazed,
Yeah.
by the whole thing.
I went to, with Yad Vashem, we went first to Austria, and then we went to Israel. And when we were in Austria, they took us to Mauthausen. That's a killing camp. And there was this town just down the hill, and the smells from the ovens and everything, unbelievable. Yeah.
Hi. I apologize if this question is too similar to another one that you've already answered. But I was wondering if there is anything you can think of as a child that anyone could have done that you think would have made a big difference in your life in terms of processing everything that happened.
You mean when I was a child?
When you were a child.
I don't know. I mean, you know, like I told you, the first orphanage, I don't remember. And the second, they were wonderful, and there was a wonderful director, and we used to call him Papa Osman. And he also wrote a book, and he said what was so important is that for the children to be happy, to be together. And this was right after the war, I mean, over a few years after the war. And that was a wonderful time. And then they took us away from that, which was very upsetting. And they took us to America to, I don't know what. But they felt, the aunt, I must say, that the uncle said that we would have a better life in America. Maybe, but at that point, that's not the way we saw it. So I don't know what else it could have been done, you know. And then we had a reunion with the OZ, the group, and a lot of the children were there. They weren't children anymore, and they still showed the pictures when we were children. It was wonderful to see everyone there. We really felt a connection with them. You know, some came from Israel to be there. You know, I don't know what we could have done differently. We were very lucky to be underneath the OZ umbrella because they really took care of us, you know. They really took care of us.
Thank you for sharing your message so candidly and honestly tonight. I'm an educator right across the street at the high school, and as a survivor in the youngest generation of survivors, I'm curious about other things like this program that you've been a part of, or focus that's being put on to capture the stories of you and other hidden children in, I'm not sure if you're part of a network or any kind of group or organization, but what work is being done right now, and where can, especially some of the young people here tonight, access more resources and more stories? I know the museums are bastions of knowledge, and I've been to DC and the rest, but I'm thinking I'm trying to appeal to teenagers' brains, and I'm thinking about things like podcasts and YouTube video series and things that are accessible for students. Are you part of any of that, or could you share resources like that with us?
No, I'm not part of podcast. I don't know anything about it. I do belong to, well, there was a Hidden Child Foundation, which was a part of ADL. I don't know how, it's not so much anymore. As I said, I belong to a small group of who were babies during the Holocaust. I've gone to quite a few groups, you know, when we get together during the summer and we speak about it, but not anymore, you know, I don't know. I can't give you any more. I'm speaking much more. I mean, I'm speaking on Zoom, and I've spoken to a big group in Manhattan. The rabbi was questioning me. I like this format because I don't have to remember everything. So I like the format of someone asking me a question, and Maureen was terrific. So that's very good. So that I do, you know. And Judy asked me last year about coming here. I said, okay. And she said, don't worry, it'll be good. So I trusted her, and she was right. Yeah, it was okay. Yeah. So.
Hello. I too want to thank you so much for coming.
I don't see you.
Yeah.
Oh,
there we are.
Here I am.
Okay.
But you told us you were around at 40. But what was your vocation, if you don't mind telling us?
I was a secretary. First, I was going to become a social worker, but I decided no, I needed more therapy. I needed therapy. I couldn't do that. So I worked for about 40 years to the group called the Memorial Foundation for Jewish Culture. We gave grants to people who were doing their doctorate in the Jewish field, people who were writing books. Also, we also gave grants to organizations overseas. So it's just to continue the Jewish culture. So I was there till 2010. So that's how I found the book, with all that information from Serge Klarsfeld, because we had given them money for that book. I think there was somebody down.
There was another question.
Yeah, somebody down here.
Yeah, right here.
Hi, thank you so much again. And I also want to say that one of my best friends teaches at Stern College, and so I will share with her that this made such a difference in your life. I'm sure that will be something that the Stern people will value very, very much.
Yeah.
But can you tell me a little bit about what happened to your sister while you were?
Yes. My sister went to nursing school, and she became a nurse. So she was working in a hospital. Then she became a private duty nurse. Then she worked in a school for children who were having problems. I forget what they're called, but she worked there. So she was a nurse, and she brought up 3 children, and one of them lives in Thailand. He has 4 children who came back, and they all graduated from college, Yale, University of Pennsylvania. The rest of them, yeah, they were wonderful. And my niece has a little girl who's about to have a bat mitzvah in a few weeks in Delaware. And the other niece has a daughter who is a swimmer, and she was on the Maccabean group, and she went to Israel to we saw her swim, and now she goes to Wesleyan school, and she's a swimmer. She's a very bright girl, so I'm very proud of them. Yeah. Yeah.
When people deny the Holocaust and talk about, they say it's not real, what's your reaction and how do you feel?
I can't believe it. And there was in England, there was Professor Deborah Lipstadt. They brought her to. She had a trial because she defended that the Holocaust did happen, and there was a denier, and he was shot down. So that was good. No, I know that's terrible that happens.
You said that the camp you went to, it wasn't a killing camp. Did you ever learn what exactly you did there at the camp?
Well, I was a baby, so I was with the babies, and we had our own nurse, so they took care of us, and I didn't do too much, I guess.
Okay. And there was a question over on this side, yes? No? Yes.
Ma'am, I just wanted to know, I know you said you struggled in accepting faith and going back and forth on religion, and I wanted to know...
I didn't say I struggled. I said I was very religious because that's where the orphanage was, and then I went to live with my foster parents who were not religious, so I was conservative. And then I went back, and then I went to Stern, which was religious, so it was back and forth. I didn't struggle with it. I just had several different kinds of experience.
I just wanted to know, ma'am, how did rediscovering your history affect your faith?
I don't understand the question.
Like figuring out what happened to your family and your lineage, how did that affect your beliefs or how you felt about being...
It didn't affect it at all. I mean, this is what happened. It didn't affect my faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And
But
Thomas.
there's
Oh,
one.
there's another one. Okay.
I just want to thank you for telling your story. It's
You're welcome.
very inspirational. Last night I was watching a couple documentaries on the Holocaust, and I saw some Holocaust victims had numbers tattooed to their bodies. Do you know if your parents or any of your ancestors?
My parents might have, because they were in Auschwitz. The people who were in Auschwitz had they had numbers stamped on them, or not stamped, but they actually, tattooed on them.
So you don't know the exact number?
Oh no.
Okay. Thank
No.
you.
You're welcome.
And then Thomas had a question.
Thank you for coming and speaking to us tonight. I
You're welcome.
have a question about your immigration to America.
Mhm.
In the long term, would you have preferred to come here knowing your circumstances, or would you have preferred to immigrate to somewhere else or stay in France?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I guess America is a pretty good place to have grown up, and so I definitely would have wanted to come here because that's where I met my husband and so on. So I don't know what would have happened. At that point, we wanted to stay in France. I thought we were going to be taken to Israel. But when I went back to visit the offices of the OZ, they said, no, that was not going to happen. And I spoke to somebody else. I was in Paris in November, and I spoke to someone who had lived with me. I mean, she had been a child also. And she said, no, she went to live in an apartment. There were several girls living together. So that's what would have happened. So in the long run, I guess it was better that we were taken here, but at that point, it was tough.
My daughter has been
Where is?
on the edge.
Oh, there he is.
Okay.
Sorry about. My daughter has been texting Lily Egbert, and she is 99, and she's over in England, and she does have a tattoo, and so my daughter has been learning from her also. And anything that comes out on the Holocaust, my daughter is into it. Her favorite book was Anne Frank. So she's got both those books, and anything that comes out on the Holocaust, she's right on top of it. She wanted me to know. She wants to know if you knew her, but I figure with all the people, it'd be hard to know anybody.
Anne Frank? No.
No.
We were in the different countries.
Yes.
I was in France till 51, and she was in Holland.
Yeah. Where? She was in Auschwitz.
Auschwitz.
And then she went to Hungary. And that's where she remains at. So, but my daughter's using Facebook and all that to communicate with her.
So this is a woman in England that his daughter is communicating with, named Lily Edgar. Is the
Egbert.
Edgar, yeah.
E-B-E-R-T.
Yeah, I don't know the name.
Yeah, but she did have the tattoo because I asked her about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I understand,
Yeah.
because all the tattoos started with A, that meant Auschwitz, and then they had the number.
Yeah. You have another question.
Thank you so much for being here and speaking with us this evening.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, when you visited with Madame Petou so many years later, did she ever talk with you about her decision to take you in and care for you?
No, the only thing she said was that she couldn't understand, like almost every month they used to come from Limoges and take me back to Limoges to see how I was doing. You know, because she says when you first came to us, you had a lot of boutons.
Like a rash?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were they knew exactly where they, actually what happened is that I found out later that it was a social worker who had brought me to the Patous from the OZ. So that was very dangerous for them to do, because that was like 41. It was very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah. I don't think so. I think she was the only one. But the children some children I found out later had parents, but they couldn't live with them because the parents really couldn't handle them or they were having problems. So they brought them to Taverny. As a matter of fact, Taverny still exists now, but now they take children from Algeria or different areas. It's not only Jewish children that they take care of. Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay, I think we will call the formal part of the evening to a close, and I want to thank Felice. This has been a wonderful experience, and thank Maureen.
Yeah, Maureen was wonderful.
Who really did a great job.
Thank you.
I'll give you a hug when I get up.
And we wanted to have a chance, if you want to talk informally now, you want to stay a while and talk, we're going to have some refreshments, so you can have some coffee, cookies, whatever, and sit and talk and ask more questions if you'd like. So we're just glad that you were all here. We appreciate your coming, and thank you all for a wonderful evening. Thank you.